أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Inshallah, we should be starting tonight's program with the recitation of the Holy Quran. I would like to call upon Brother Muhammad Hussein to come and recite the beautiful verses of the Holy Quran with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. فاذكروني أذكركم واشكروا لي ولا تكفرون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة. يا أيها الذين آمنوا استعينوا بالصبر والصلاة إن الله مع الصابرين. ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولا تقولوا لمن يقتل في سبيل الله أموات بل أحياء ولكن لا تشعرون. ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف والجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين. الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة قالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. أولئك عليهم صلوات من ربهم ورحمة وأولئك هم المهتدون. إن الصفا والمروة من شعائر الله فمن حج البيت أو اعتمر فلا جناح عليه أن يطوف بهما ومن تطوع خيرا فإن الله شاكر عليم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا أعطيناك الكوثر فصل لربك وانحر إن شانئك هو الأبتر. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
Jazakallah, Brother Muhammad Hussain, for the beautiful recitation. I would like to call upon Brother Hussain to come and present his martiya with Allah wa salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Muhammad salawat. اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں. اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں. نیزوں پہ جتنے سر ہیں ایک سر میں ان میں سا آنکھیں ہیں بند اس کی اور خاک پر ہے گرتا. عباس کا وہ سر ہے دیور بتا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے. اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں ہونے لگی اذانیں کیسے سروں کو ڈھانپے بازو بندھے ہوئے ہیں خون رو رہی ہے آنکھیں آنکھوں کے خون سے راستے خون میں نہا رہے کیا شام آ گیا ہے. اما فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں ماں کی گودیوں سے لپٹے ہوئے ہیں بچے ہے ہاتھ رسیوں میں ماں
کے ایسے جکرے بچے جو گر رہے ہیں وہ مرتے جا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر اتنا چلے ہے پیدل کانٹوں پہ سارے قیدی تک جاتی چلتے 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 اگر زمین بھی پیروں کے آبلے بھی آنسو بہا رہے ہیں کیا شام آ گیا ہے اماں فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں اماں فضا بتا دے مجھ کو پتھر کیوں آ رہے ہیں بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللہم
وعجل فرجهم. Ahsantum, Brother Hussein. Inshallah, without further ado, I'd like to request our respected Sheikh Muhammad Mehdi to come and present his lecture with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بفضل الله بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله والحمد حقه كما يستحقه حمدا كثيرا الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله اللهم لعن أول ظالم ظلم حق محمد وآل محمد وآخر تابع له على ذلك اللهم لعن العصابة التي جاهدت الحسين وشايعت وبايعت وتابعت على قتله اللهم لعنهم جميعا ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله أجمعين محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. Unfortunately, every Muharram, the poison that has come from outside of the followers or the Tashayyu or the followers of Ahl al-Bayt has penetrated and permeated into the majalis. That if you notice, every Muharram, you'll get someone that will get up and start to attack the majlis. That's the objective. The objective, why do you cry? Why do you do latum? Partly I blame us as well. Why? Because every year I say we need to do a FAQ, a fact sheet on all this. Not necessarily as to be tangible, but something where it's easily understood in an app format and it gets handed to everyone, passed through WhatsApp. So if someone says, why do we do Matam? It's there. But we haven't done this. I haven't seen one yet that follows all these. So I don't have to go over these every year. I don't have to tell people why we beat our chest. I don't have to tell people why we cry. I don't have to tell people why do we congregate. It's there. And this stops the spreading of this poison. See, one of the things people ask as to why do we object when schools try to sexualize our children. Why do we object? Do you know why we object? Because not everyone has the protective mechanisms. Not everyone's smart. Some people can be subdued. And not everyone is being taught religion at home. Not everyone attends Islamic school on the weekend. So when you go to some schools, I had a meeting about 3 weeks ago, just before Muharram, with the head of the principals for the public schools in the St. George area. Because the parents in those schools, they don't know how to put up their problems and set their discuss their qualms. So we have to come out and talk about this, and we have to put forward our complaints. Now the problem is, why do we have to do something about it? For the same reason why we have to do something about stopping this poison entering, because not everyone that enters the majlis understands what they're here for. In fact, if you were to grab a group of people that enter, because in Muharram, you people are the regulars. You come for Jummah, you come for the regular programs. Are you telling me you were the only people here for Muharram? No. How many faces do you see Muharram that you never see the entire year? A lot. So these people come in, and this is the food that they are fed when they enter. And I need to be careful of this. So tonight, I want to discuss a hadith عن الإمام علي بن موسى الرضا صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. And dissect it. The Imam in this hadith, he says, and you've heard this hadith in many different ways and mentioned by other Imams. He says, رحم الله عبدا أحيا أمرنا. This narration that is narrated, now generally went to one of the companions of Imam Rida, in this case being Abu Salt al-Harawi, which was a close companion of Imam Rida. See, sometimes the Imam will say something and someone says, thank you very much, and keeps going. Doesn't ask the Imam. Just like when we look at Dua Qumail, Imam Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam said on the 15th Sha'ban, the best thing to do is Dua al-Nabi Khudr, or Dua al-Khudr, not al-Nabi, Dua al-Khudr. And Amir al-Mu'mineen leaves. Now, all the companions go on their merry way, except Qumail ibn Ziyad al-Nakha'i follows Amir al-Mu'mineen home and says, Ya Mawla, you said to read Dua al-Khudr, but you didn't tell us what Dua al-Khudr was. So he follows, he wants to know. Other people say, yeah, whatever that dua is, I'll see you when you get there. You keep going and worry about it later. So in the case of Imam al-Rida, when he says these words to Abu Salt al-Harawi, Rahim Allah. Rahim Allah means the mercy of Allah, means he's blessed. It's like saying Tuba, blessed is this person. Abdan, a servant of God, Ahya Amrana. Ahya Amrana means to keep alive the commandments, or keep alive the ordeals, or revive the commandments of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. Now you can take this in any way. What does this mean? But Abu Salt doesn't take any chances. He's not someone that's going to interpret it the way he wants, as some people dare to get up on the mambar and interpret the hadith and interpret the Quranic verse the way that they see. The way that they say, oh, this sounds good. This sounds good. You know, we're in the year 2023. The vibes of this are good. Let's just say it as it is. Abu Salt says, فَقُلْتُ لَهُ وَكَيْفَ يُحْيِي أَمْرَكُمْ. You told us to revive your commands. How do we do it? Show me the method. I need you to tell me, because I'm not going to be someone that acts on my opinion or on my ra'i. Because if I give my own opinion, so people don't understand this. I'll give you an example what I mean by our own opinion. One of the sisters contacted me and she said, during Muharram, I give out food. I said, okay. She said, when I give out the food, I've made these sweets, I've put coloring in them, red coloring, which is taken from carmine or cochineal, as it's mentioned. This is from an insect. She said, and the opinion of Sayyid al-Sistani is it's halal to consume. Is that right? But there are other marajah that say it's haram. She said, am I allowed to give this out amongst other people? So I started, when I was answering her, I started thinking to myself as I'm talking to her. As I was thinking out loud. I said to her, if I follow Sayyid Sistani and I've got, Ajallakumullah, I have urine on my hand. The method of purifying it through tap water, because he doesn't consider tap water to be ma jari, he considers it to be ma qurri. But he considers, because urine, I have to wash it twice, said the Sistani. But other fuqaha consider that they have to wash it once. Isn't that right? So if someone washes their hand once and they touch me, we consider that to be tahir anyway, based on the opinion of their marja. And then I said, sometimes I invite someone to my house. I might eat chicken that's killed by machine. Sayyid Sistani permits this, but other marajah don't. Do you understand what I mean? But do I tell them, listen, brother, this chicken, machine slaughtered? No, I just feed them and they eat. And then she said to me, so that means I can give this out? I said, no, I'm just thinking loudly. She said, so what are you trying to say? I'm trying to give you an example, I told her. I am a jahil. I'm not a scholar. Our fuqaha, our ulama, the people neglect, the mujtahids, they are the ulama. I said, so I go back to them because when they get law, they don't get it out of their back pocket. They go back to the Quran and the Hadith. They go back to the source and then they look at all the source that they have studied and then they give you the response. So she said, what do we do now? I said, I contact them. So I contacted my teacher who is a mujtahid. You know what he said to me? He said, yes, what you said is precise. I go, so I give an answer. He said, no, I need to ask the maktab of Sayyid Sistani, Sayyid Sheikh Mehdi Marwarid in Qom. Say, do you understand what I mean? You fear giving the answer because there's a stance on the day of judgment when I want to give my opinion. I need to be aware of this, not get up on the mambar and think, all right, now I'm the king here, I can say what I want. Who am I to give my own opinion? Abu Salt al-Harawi was a alim. He said to Imam Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam, Kayfa? How do we do ihya of your amr? How do we revive your commandments? The first thing the Imam says, and this is what we're going to go through one at a time, he says, يَتَعَلَّمُ عُلُومَنَا. The first thing the Imam says, he learns our sciences or learns our teachings. And when it comes to knowledge, don't sit there and try and find, exotic and new knowledge. The knowledge is from one source when it comes to religion. It's one source when it comes to religion. It's like, I'll give you an example. I had a person contact me and said, listen, my mother has stage 3 cancer and I want to get her medicinal marijuana. I said, okay. He said, can I do this? I said, before I start, I said, when you go there and you have cancer, you go see who? An oncologist. Isn't that right? I said, what did the oncologist say? He said, why do I have to ask him? Okay, because that's his field. That's his field. He said, well, the oncologist recommended chemotherapy. I said, do you know why he's done this? And he said, no. I said, because there's extensive research and study and proven results with chemotherapy. He said, really? I said, of course, he wouldn't put his, in Australia there's liability. You're not living in some fourth world rundown country where there's no liability, you can amputate. You're not living during the Civil War in the 19th century where they were just cutting limbs off for fun. There's liability. He won't be recommending something just like that. So I need to follow what the expert's telling me. And he said, what if I don't agree? I go, there's a thing called a second opinion. He said, where do I get it from? I got another oncologist. He said, why can't I ask you? I said, because asking me is like asking financial advice from an engineer. It's two different fields. So when it comes to religion, I come to the ones that understand religion. Who are they? The Imam says in a hadith, Imam Abu Ja'far, Al-Imam Al-Baqir, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. He says, lan. I need to explain, when you read the Arabic text, when you hear the word lan, there's lam, like lam, and I'll write it in English, L-A-M, M for Mike, and there's lan, okay, which is Lima Alpha, November. The other one's Lima Alpha Mike. This one's Lima Alpha, November. Lan, November, is different to Mike. Is anyone understanding? I don't want to get lost with Mike in November. You know? So, with lan, lam means, when I say lam, it means it hasn't happened. You know, it's never happened before, but it can happen later. Lam means hasn't happened, but lan, November, means it will never ever happen. Ta'bid. We say this, but other schools of thought don't. Do you know why? In Arabic, this is correct, but do you know why they changed the law? Because God in the Quran says, lan tarani. That God says, you will never see me. They say, no, brother. We'll be having coffee with God in fi maq'adi sidqina, 'inda malik muqtadir. After he puts his foot in hell, we'll be sitting with him. We will have a chilling with this peg-leg God, whatever happens afterwards, because he's missing a leg. The thing is, then we can sit there and have our little chai with him somewhere. We have a picnic and we can enjoy ourselves. We have lan. You can never see God, ever. So when the Imam says lan, you will never, ever, not now, not tomorrow, not in a billion years, lan tajida ilman sahihan illa. So when we have a negation, when a sentence begins with a negation, that means all other than what is about to be said is non-existent. So any sentence, when we say la, that's called a nafi. Lan is even stronger. Never. لن تجد علما صحيحا إلا شيئا يخرج من عندنا أهل البيت. There is no true knowledge. Never will you get true knowledge except what comes from us, Ahlul Bayt. Never. If someone comes along and he wants to teach you something new, well, I say, brother, good. What you said, does it agree with the Quran and Ahlul Bayt? He says, no, brother, I don't want to hear it, brother. Tell it to the fairies. I don't want to hear this discussion because this is all I want to hear. When it comes to religion, the Prophet left us with Quran and Ahlul Bayt. He didn't say Quran, Ahlul Bayt, and little Johnny down the street. He didn't say Quran. He didn't add anyone. He didn't add anyone for you to follow other than the Quran and Ahlul Bayt. In another hadith, عن أبي حمزة الثمالي عن أبي جعفر, once again, عن الإمام باقر, from this one, عليه السلام, from أبي حمزة الثمالي. He says, عالم ينتفع بعلمه أفضل من عبادة 70,000 عابد. So after we get the source from Ahlul Bayt, a alim, any scholar, anyone that has any knowledge from this house, not from anywhere else, anyone that gets up on the mumbar, if he's not speaking from this house, he's talking about something else. Okay? I need to establish this. So he says, عالم ينتفع بعلمه. So a alim, or a scholar that has knowledge, that is beneficial, which means from that house. He says, أفضل من عبادة 70,000 عابد. Better is better than the worship of 70,000 worshippers. Can you imagine what 70? You want to understand what 70,000 worshippers are? You want to look around and see what 70,000. The capacity of Masjid al-Haram when it's fully packed is 250,000. That's Masjid al-Haram. See how big it is? When it's fully packed, it never is. You know, because they stop people for different reasons and it's never fully packed. So what's 70,000? Could you imagine? Because you got 3 levels there and how big it is. What's 70,000 in capacity? 70,000 people worshipping are not as good as a scholar that gives you knowledge that benefits. In fact, this is why it's important. I know I need to, before I bring up someone onto the mumbar or someone to talk, I need to look and research who this person is. I don't just pick him up because of the cut of his jib. I don't pick him up and bring him to the mumbar because he's got a nice singing voice and everyone's going to be happy. You know what I mean? This is not the way that we select them. This is not a panel that sings, that picks the best voice or the best singer that there is. When you want to bring someone up, just listen to their lectures. So I was listening to a study, I was telling the brothers as I was coming up here. I was listening for the whole hour trip to someone that did a study on the concept of the Prophet being an ummi. And he used all the Quran, the hadith, so I said, listen to it. Because this guy was spitting truth. Everything was coming out was from Ahl al-Bayt. So I listened to it. But this is what, because I know what he's saying is validated. In fact, he was telling you hadith and the sanad and everything. So this alim in this lecture was making sure it was very well structured. And it was all from there. And he never at one point did he stop and say, listen, however, this person that I met on a mountain one day when I was going on my travels, that I don't know from a bar of soap, but I'll say he's an alim because he looked the part. This is what they're doing these days. They're quoting people that, even to the point I've heard people being quoted that are cursed by Ahlul Bayt, and they'll quote them. To this point, it's become to this point. So in this hadith, that's also narrated on Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, he says, متفقه في الدين أشد على الشيطان من عبادة ألف عابد. He says someone that has tafaqquh في الدين, someone that applies the religion, that follows the religion, that teaches the religion, is fiercer upon the devil than 1,000 worshippers. Someone that studies religion. Imagine someone that's imparting knowledge what they do. So if they're getting up there and they're singing for the devil, you know how much damage? And especially when you watch some of these videos where people are talking, you see children sitting in the majlis. And you think, La ilaha illallah, these people have put this person to get up and talk in front of kids, indoctrinating them from the start. And I want to tell you how important this is. Go to the Salat Sayyid Sistani. And when I use the Maraja, Sayyid Sistani says, if you have a teacher, listen to this. This is a fatwa. That is an atheist and teaches you and may have an effect on you from this atheism, he says it's haram. He doesn't say ahwat wujuhan. He says haram for you to be in his class. Hormi. Imagine you're bringing these people into the center. That their aqidah is batil to begin with. The only reason I'm so concerned, I heard 3 different speakers this year. One was giving a discussion all on pluralism. Another was giving a discussion all on pantheism, and I'll discuss what these are another time. And the third one was just talking a very anti-Husseini discussion. And I was just thinking, Yarhamakumullah, I was thinking to myself, La ilaha illallah, these centers are accountable for who they bring up on the manabir. They're accountable if it's not from Ahl al-Bayt. So the first thing he says, يَتَعَلَّمُ عُلُومَنَا. What's the second thing to revive their commandments? He says, وَيُعَلِّمُهَا النَّاسِ. The second thing he says is to teach the teachings of the Imam. First you need to learn it, then you need to teach it. وَيُعَلِّمُهَا النَّاسِ. Something so simple, you mention it to people. Now, this hadith I want to use for the second part. This hadith, honestly, I could give a whole discussion on it based on a hadith and the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari. It's a beautiful hadith that dissects this hadith, this verse of the Quran. Sorry, not hadith, this verse of the Quran. This hadith on Imam Hassan al-Askari dissects this whole hadith verse. It's amazing. It's for another time because it can't be done in one seating. It needs multiple seatings. Okay. This verse in the Quran you hear all the time. It says, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbik bil hikmati wal maw'izati al hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan inna rabbaka huwa a'lamu biman dalla an sabilihi wa huwa a'lamu bil muhtadin." The first thing I need you to understand is when you propagate Islam, Islam is a package. Don't sugarcoat it. Don't ever sugarcoat the religion. Don't ever make it sound in the way other people would like to hear. Okay? Don't think if I say it this way, this person will change. Today I was at the grocery store, and there was a man. He entered the shop, and we had a discussion because the owner of the shop put me into a discussion with him. He wanted me to. He set something up so we could start talking. And then the brother looked at me and said, "Listen, you know, I heard that the Prophet," they said, "is this true, was married to a woman?" And he said 12, you know. Hello, forget the age and the whole concept of whether this is true or not true is not the issue. I don't sit there and say, "Listen, you know, according to that woman, she said she was 6, but according to our narrations, they say she was up to 24, somewhere up to 24 years old. Our narrations say she was divorced. But to her, she wants to be a child and she was playing with toys." That's her hadith. And she's the one that goes really into making sure people believe this. But the issue, I don't care about the age. The age is not my issue. People say, "What? The age is not your issue?" Of course not. I said to them, because, and this is, Albert Einstein says that common sense is prejudice that's developed from birth until the age of 18. What you think to be acceptable today is something that's developed. It's not something that is consistent. And then I began with, I love saying this to people. I always tell them before February, I love saying this, before February 2021, what was the age of consent in France? I love saying this because a lot of people don't know. Does anyone know what the age of consent in France was before February 2021? That's 2 and a bit years ago. Huh? Lower. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. There was no age of consent in France. And if you want to research it, go look it up. Whoever wants the evidence, I'll give them the evidence. Do you know why you don't hear about it? Because it's a white country. Who cares? They don't want to explain. In fact, a movie made by the director Luc Besson called The Professional was based upon a man that was in love with a little girl. But no one noticed it because we said, "Oh, it couldn't be possible." People are shocked. So when this guy said to me, "Did you know they say the Prophet was married to a 12-year-old girl?" I said, "Did you know Elvis Presley was dating Priscilla when she was 12? And he said, "What?" I said, "And Jerry Lee Lewis married a 13-year-old. And you're talking about this was in the 20th century. Wasn't that long ago." I go, "Did you know Edgar Allan Poe was married to his 13-year-old cousin? That was in the 19th century. Do you want me to keep going?" The problem with Muslims, they get shocked because they base it on the standards of the Australian government that sits and advertises alcohol and gambling and all the destructive things to the people. They put them as a standard of justice. Do never ever be ashamed of your religion. Your religion was perfected by Allah Azza wa Jal. So when you deliver it to someone, you deliver it as a package. وَمَا عَلَى الرَّسُولِ إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. All you have to do is deliver the message, whether they accept or they don't. I'm sitting in my grave, they're sitting in theirs. It's their business. But there's a way to deliver it. It's the manner in which you deliver it. But the religion, don't change the matter, you change the manner. The content remains the same because it's a perfect religion. You cannot add to perfection. Anything you try to add makes it imperfect. Makes it imperfect. It's not the same anymore. That's why when people mention, I always mention the oxygen example. When people mention the atoms of oxygen that we breathe, is why? You know, oxygen's very unstable, like hydrogen, bonds all the time. So there's always O2 in our atmosphere. It's not always O2, but in our atmosphere, where we are, it's O2. You breathe it, and it's good for you. Can I have 100% oxygen? Yes, sir. Is it good for me? Yes, sir. Of course it is good for you. Why isn't the atmosphere 100%? Well, you don't want people to spontaneously combust in the environment. There's a reason why things aren't the way that they are. What if I remove one oxygen atom and it becomes a single O? Can I breathe it? It's still a gas. It's still in gas form. It's still gaseous. Still oxygen. A single atom of what? Gas. What if I add an extra atom of oxygen and the molecule is now O3? What's that? What's it called? Ozone. Can I breathe that? They're both poisonous. O3 and O are poisonous. The only one I can breathe is O2. Quran and Ahl al-Bayt, breathe it. Take away Quran's worth nothing. Take away Ahl al-Bayt's worth nothing. Add a third thing, you've contaminated it. It doesn't have that same value. This is what you need to understand when it comes to what the religion is. Don't compromise. And then there are those that are active in guidance and do what gains proximity to Allah Azza wa Jal. Do you know why you shouldn't worry? Because Allah has already told you what the situation is. He says, وَمَا أَكْثَرُ النَّاسِ وَلَوْ حَرَصْتَ بِمُؤْمِنِينَ. He says, لَوْ حَرَصْتَ. Harasta means, when someone's haris, it means someone is really scrupulous, really meticulous, really, like really observant of all the dangers and protective. No matter how much you are protective and how much you are concerned and now how eager you are, and no matter the method you use, God already says most people will not believe. And He's giving you reasons why. Besides the shaitan, the nafs al-ammara, that they're always lowly self, that they want this dunya, and besides what? The dunya itself, it's lucrative. People look at the dunya. You think about, I want you to use this example when we sit and listen to the majlis. How big was the army that fought Imam Hussein? Use this ratio always in your life. The minimum we have, it says 30,000. That's the lowest we have of the army of Umar ibn Sa'd, 30,000, which is humongous. Some narrations say 70,000. Some narrations have said 1,000,000, which is 1 million. Some narrations say, so I always go with what it possibly is the minimum, or anything more, I don't know. Some narrations say the army was in flanks and ranks, still marching. Some were in Karbala and some were still moving from Kufa. How big it was, God knows. But let's go with the 30,000, the minimum. Hur, his son, and his servant were the three that we know of. We don't know, do you know of anyone else that left the army? No, you just know these three. Has anyone given you another hadith? So we'll go with what we know. And because we're using the minimum, it can give us a rough estimate. So 3 out of 30,000. So that's 1 in 10,000. And this is Imam Hussein doing the da'wah, not me. Not anyone else. Imam Hussein is doing the da'wah to God. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that was so careful and so merciful in his discussion with them. And he called them to the way of God in the best possible way. If you listen to the sermons, there's nothing like these sermons in where he calls them and the way he calls them and reminds them, and he doesn't stop until his last moments calling them to God. How many turn back? We said 3 out of 3,000. Your job is to call to God. The results aren't on you, they're on God. Your job is just to call. Remember, the test is you. My brother Sheikh Ali, I've used this example before, always says this. Sheikh Ali, my brother, he says to me, imagine you're player one and everyone else is an NPC. That's how you look at it. You're player one. Just worry about yourself. You got to do the right thing. Imagine like you're in the, what's it called? What's that movie for Jim Carrey? Truman Show. You're the only character. You're the only person. Everyone else is playing the role. That's how you, this person's stealing? Yes, I'm not going to steal. They're all lying? Yes, I'm going to say the truth. That's how you got to play. That's how you got to be in the dunya. You have to be the best person. When someone's doing wrong or someone's doing anything that you do not like, you be that change that you want to see. That's how you have to be. That's the role that you have to play. And if you think it's going to be other than that, you think if you sell your religion, they'll follow you. They never do. وَلَنْ تَرْضَ عَنْكَ الْيَهُودُ وَلَا النَّصَارَى حَتَّى تَتَّبِعَ مِلَّتَهُمْ. They will never accept you. They never have accepted you. I was reading an article from 2 days ago, and it was about an Australian that was a settler. I love how they use the word settler. Like he settles. Sounds like Shakespearean nestle. You know, he nestled, he settled. In the West Bank, he took someone's home, but he settled. Sounds like he settled. Sounds like something nice. He settled down. The terminology is important. Because if we said occupier, we said overlord. You know, we said usurper. Doesn't sound nice. Settler. You know, that's the term that we're using, an Australian citizen. And he said, this is our land, rightfully handed to us from God. You've heard this terminology before, haven't you? But when it's said by other people, it's terrorism. You know what I mean? But for our Red Sea pedestrian cousins, it's all okay. They can say what they want and it's all accepted. So this person, I read this article, you know, when the Thomas Wagner was playing in the back of my head. I was reading, you know, I'm not going to go any further into that. Whoever understood that reference will understand it. Whoever doesn't understand it didn't understand it. So anyway, the thing is, you need to understand that the end never justifies the means. Never, ever, ever justifies the means. Do not for a second think that if I do it this way, this is the only way. You know, like some of the drug dealers I remember when I was young and I used to read about in the papers, and now they're legitimate businessmen. They built up their business with white powder. They got to the top, made money, now they're, what? Legitimate businessmen. All that money is all haram, and it's waiting for them on the day of judgment for their accountability. They might have said it's in my past. You never cleansed your past. You never fixed what you did before. So it doesn't matter what the objective is. If I want to build a Husseiniya, I have to do it in a correct method. Some of these brothers in one South American country, I'm not going to say which one it was, they wanted to build a Husseiniya. So they said, we're going to they got the best singer in that country, and she gave a concert, proper concert, you know. Imagine South American, you know, you think of all what it would have been, what Latino, and what you think of what these people excel in and how the concerts would have been. And the money that they accumulated, they built the house of Imam Hussein with it. The end never justifies the means. The means is essential. How I get there is just as essential as the destination, if not more essential. Okay? Because the wrong route will take you to the wrong destination. I know you always hear all roads lead to Rome. That's not true. That's just a terminology where all stations to Central. You know? But that's not the way it is. They won't always take you to Central. You could end up in a loop somewhere and keep going around doing happy laps and not get to where you want to go. This is the thing. You could go onto the wrong route, wrong destination. Now, how do I call to the way of Ahlul Bayt? The first thing narrated and the sixth holy Imam, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. He says, كونوا دعاة للناس بغير ألسنتكم ليروا منكم الاجتهاد والصدق والورع. He says, call the people with other than your tongues. How do I call with other than my tongue? Practically. He says, ليروا منكم الاجتهاد. They see the way you strive to do things. You do things in the right way. وَالصِّدْقِ وَالْوَرَعِ. They see honesty and they see what? Abstinence. They see abstinence. From a believer, they see this. If you ever notice, when people look at Muslim athletes that are Muslim, you know, when we say a Muslim athlete, that's actual Muslim that practices Islam, they are always amazed at what? Their temperament. I'm not talking that it doesn't have to be a Muslim that follows Ahlul Bayt, just a Muslim in general. Because a Muslim, any Muslim has already the nur of Rasulullah and the nur of Tawheed and the nur of Nubuwwah. He still needs to complete it with the rest, but he still has something from there. So they still have the effect of the effect of having Tawheed. They still have the effect of Nubuwwah. It's there. So when they sit there and they say, wow, he's disciplined, he doesn't drink. Wow, he doesn't lead a life of debauchery. He's not lewd, he doesn't go here and there. They look at them in a different way. They respect them more. Because this person holds their religion. They hold firm, they have ideals. Because the religion gives them this. And when they have this method, the people are affected. When they tell them, I'm a Muslim, I don't lie. I don't lie. You know, and when people say everyone lies, and they say, no, I don't see it necessary to lie. I'll say the truth. Where I need to say the truth. Where I have to say the truth, I'll say the truth. Who am I afraid of? وَفِي الصِّدْقِ النَّجَاةِ. I remember when I first came, just give you an example of saying the truth and how it works. When I first came, I was living in Lebanon. When I first came to Australia, I wanted to register my kids in the same primary school I went to. But I was out of area, way out of area. So people said, listen, go get your address and put it in another house and you'll get in. I said, no. So why? I said, they're meant to be there. It'll work out. If they're not meant to be there, I told them I hate to lie and get caught out. Could you give me the humiliation of you lying and get it? Forget about religion. Put religion and is one thing. That's what I mean. Forget about it. Don't consider it. No. Forget. This is a primary thing for everything. But I'm saying, consider the humiliation when you're caught lying. And you're a Muslim. So I just went and I said, listen, we're out of area. I said exactly what was in my head. I said, I used to go here. I want my kids to go there. If they don't go here, I'm probably going to homeschool them. Because I want them to go to school. I know this school. And then she said, we'll consider it. And then she got me application forms and they were put in the school. Eventually, I was trying to find a place to move next school, and I did. But I didn't want to start off with a lie. It's pointless. For something like this, it's pointless. You cause a headache for yourself. So you don't need to put yourself in such a position. Just a lie. Say the truth, and then you don't have to sleep worrying about who's going to knock on your door. You know? Because people call me. They got housing commissions. And I remember one guy, honestly, he had a housing commission with an S600 outside. A new one too. And then he said, if they can. And I said, seriously? Could you be a little more, do you have the word subtle in your dictionary? Like you are openly breaking the law and openly, like, this is called audacity. So when you do something like this, how do you represent the religion? How do people look at you? And they say, brother, then I have to pay so much rent. Okay, that's what we're all doing. We pay that or you pay the mortgage. That's what you're supposed to do because that's how life is. And that's why it's called reliance on Allah to bring the rizq so you can live. That's how it works. That's how it works. And if you're going to end up on the street, so be it. That's what's written for you. That's life. If. So I have to be a representative. This is how I call to the religion. In another hadith from the 7th Imam, because whenever they say عن العالم, it's Musa ibn Ja'far salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. He says كونوا زينا ولا تكونوا شينا حببونا إلى الناس ولا تبغضونا جروا إلينا كل مودة وادفعوا عنا كل قبيح. Firstly, he says, be an ornament. Be an ornament and do not be, when we say shayna, do not be something that's detestable, something that's deplorable, okay? And so be an ornament for the religion and don't be somewhere we got Muslims. Like, you know, I'm not going to name some suburbs. I've been to some suburbs. I won't go to, let's not talk about Australia. I'll go overseas. I was once with my child and we're driving. My child was 5. Listen to this observation. We went from one village to the next. He said, Baba. I said, what? He said, these cars are parked properly. I said, yes, Baba, we just entered the Christian village. This is what I said to him. He said, why? I said, I don't know, Baba. He said, why are they parked like this? I said, I don't know. Why do we have this? The suburbs here, I swear, you go to, it's like they make them that. Why? When you have the religion that is the cleanest of religions. Did you know when the Prophet was telling us to have baths, do you know how often they were bathing back then? How often do you think the English were bathing when we were bathing? When we were doing ghusl al-Jum'ah and ghusl, whenever we needed to do it, how often do you think the English were bathing? Just give a guess. Annually or biannually. And I'm not using any hyperbole. Go look it up. Once a year. Could you imagine what they smelt like? They would have smelt like a fish market 3 weeks later. Yet, that's how they were bathing. Whereas the Muslims were the cleanest. They were known for this. They were known for their hygiene. How do you think Islam spread? How do you think Islam spread? People tell you by the sword. I say rubbish. Because those that were spread by the sword went back to their old religions. You can see the Salman Rushdies, you can tell. They were people that were pushed by the sword. So they went back. But the ones that embraced religion, they saw it, they followed it forever. They followed it for keeps. He says, make people love us, do not make people hate us. Okay? He says, bring the people to us through mawadda. Mawadda is not mahabba. It's not love. It's love in action. It's by showing compassion. By helping people. By being good. You know, when you see these Muslims that were helping in every aspect. There's some Muslims that just like to help the Westerner. They don't help the Muslim. There's Muslims that help the Westerner and they help the Muslim. They help everyone. Why? Because they're a Muslim. Goodness emanates from them. They are known like this because they represent Islam. Now the thing is, you do not require oratory skills in Islam. You know, in the West, you have so many people wrongfully imprisoned, don't you? You have many guilty people walking through free. Do you know why? Because of rhetoric. Because what's the lawyer's job? The lawyer's job, anyone that works in law, your job is not to understand the law in court, but to interpret the law. The way you interpret the law means the way you twist it and turn it. It's lying and deceit. In Islam, you don't have oratory skills because they don't listen to your oratory skills. Islam is so simple. It's one thing where Sayyid al-Khumaini, rahmatullah alayhi, you know what he said? He said, do you know what the courts have become like? He said family courts have become like Jahannam. Every time they are taken out of it, they put back into it. You know, the verse in the Quran says, how family courts have become. That's it, they're just in the courts. and they argue. You don't need to have oratory skills. You don't need to sound like someone that has the linguistics and the eloquence in speech. You don't need to be like that. This is the beauty. It's not about me being able to use oratory ability and mastery on the pulpit to bring people over. People don't care. Half the things you say, no one understands. What do you think when you construct? Like Kim Beazley, when he used to talk, I don't know if anyone remembers him. I never understood what he was saying half the time. You know? That's all you talk, and people go, what's Kim talking about? Yeah, people that use like big terminology. It doesn't bring people over to religion. Character does. Character and the way you represent Islam. The way you call people towards Islam. Finally, the Imam says, and I'll finish off with this, I'm really sorry about the time I've taken for you, your valuable time. And then he says, وَيُعَلِّمُهَا النَّاسِ, teach the people, فَإِنَّ النَّاسِ لَوْ عَلِمُوا مَحَاسِنَ كَلَامِنَا لَاتَّبَعُونَا. If the people knew the words of the Imams of how, what they say, the goodness of the words, they will follow them. Did you know they will follow them? You know, for example, you hear here, if you want to do any form of trade and how it works in Islam is very different. There's no monopolies in Islam. It doesn't exist. Anyone can trade with whatever they want. They just have to be honest. There's no one hoarding all the land. You know, we have, whoever digs a well in Islam, the well is his. Whoever plants a tree, the tree is his. Whoever cultivates a land, the land is his. There's no such thing as crown land in Islam. There's none of that. That doesn't exist. In Islam, takes away all these burdens and these shackles from people. People hear what the Imams say, they will follow them. But the problem is the block there. Why? People don't want to hear because they see visions of Islam that are portrayed in the worst way. And I'm not talking about the visions of Matam, please. There are worse things that they see. Do you ever see them? I've never heard someone get up of the West and complain about the Matam. I've never ever. I've sat. The first thing they complain about is what? Bombing, fighting, terrorism. That's the first thing they mention. And this is where the Muslims, the first thing I used to say to people when they say all Muslims are terrorists, I say, well, now there's nearly 2 billion of us. I said, imagine 2 billion. We're like 1/4 of the world. If we're all terrorists, you don't exist. Think about that. You don't exist. You absolutely don't even have a presence. If we're all terrorists, you should be fighting your government for allowing us into your country. Things you got to be putting up and let them think. Give them food for thought. Let them think about what is about to be said. You sit there and you listen to the stories of the people that have been guided. Do you ever listen to those revert stories? Every time someone says to me, I found Islam, I always say, hold on, I need to have a coffee with this person. I want to hear how you found Islam. And the stories, although you might find each one unique, they all have some form of a central figure that brought them to the religion. Someone that had good character, or in some cases you'd be shocked. I've met people that they came to Islam because they met the most despicable person. I said, how? I said, I met this Muslim and he was so bad to me, so I researched Islam to find more dirt on Islam. I ended up following Islam. This is what happens. It happens. So sometimes, but most of the time, it's a central figure, a person that represented Islam in the righteous way. Even if you take a look at Abu Dharr al-Ghifari, Radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, the companion of Rasulullah, who Rasulullah swears about the honesty of Abu Dharr. He says the most honest person that he has seen, that lived, was Abu Dharr. Abu Dharr went, if you look at the ulama that came from Jabal Amil in Lebanon, This is all from the seed of Abu Dhar. Abu Dhar went there and he taught people. He said, Ayyuhan nas, ana Jundub ibn Janada. He said, oh people, I am Jundub, son of Janada. I am Abu Dhar al-Ghifari, the companion of Rasulullah. With these eyes, I saw Rasulullah. With these ears, I heard Rasulullah. And Rasulullah said, Ali ma'al haqq wal haqqu ma Ali. Yaduru ma'ahu haythu ma dar. Ali is with the haqq, with the truth, and the truth is with Ali. Not Ali follows the truth follows Ali wherever he goes. People hear this and they start waking up. The whole time we've been following Muawiyah. The whole time we've been following this tyrant king. And then he gives them a breath of fresh air. They've been sitting with Muawiyah. Imagine they're sitting in a smelly sauna. Suddenly someone just opens a door and a small draft enters the door. The favor of Amir al-Mu'mineen. He takes this breath in. You know, you've felt that. That's how it comes in. It's a clean, fresh breath of air. In these nights, the women and the children on the night of the 10th, all they smelt were the smell of cinders and flames that were entering into the nasal passages. And from this, the heat. And where were they supposed to go? They would run from place to place. Who were they seeking refuge from? Everyone they ran to was seeking refuge from someone else. You know, when someone dies, we come and say, Adamallah lak al-aj. We come and give our condolences. No one gave condolences to Sayyida Zainab on that night. Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam didn't even have time to cry. Do you think she had time to cry? Do you think Sayyida Zainab had time to even reflect about the situation? Do you think that anyone was able to? Do you know how many children were trampled by horses on this day? Do you know how many children were burnt by fire on this day? In fact, do you know that even when the children would run and they think, you know, when a child comes, they think someone's there to help them. And when they come, this person would rip their earrings off. This person would take their jewelry. And when one of the daughters of Imam Hussein said to this man, she said, why are you doing this to us? He said, if I do not do it, someone else will. They were all in this case. Sayyida Zainab alayhi salam, you need to remember when she came to Karbala, she had Abu al-Fadl Abbas flanking her on one side. She had Ali al-Akbar on the other. She had Imam Hussein with her. Now she's all alone. There's no one there with them. No Abbas, no Ali Akbar, no Hussein. Where does she turn to? She heads her face and turns towards Najaf. She says, Aba Amir al-Mu'mineen al-Ghawth. Oh Amir al-Mu'mineen, we ask for your help. There's no one here left. And then when they take them, they pick them up and they are taking them towards the horses to take them to ride them off to display them at Kufa. As they're doing this, they start to give them water to drink. They've been 2 days without water. So the children refuse to drink. They're still in shock. Sayyida Zainab is forced to drink just to show the kids so they do not die. One of the children takes the water. Sakina takes the water. And she takes the water. She says, I don't want to drink. She said, why? She says, I want to take the water because my father was thirsty. So she goes over to the body of Imam Hussein. And when she sees the body, she sees the body without a head. So she looks for the head of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. As she looked, she sees the head that is standing on a spear. She brings the water towards him. She says, oh my father, who is the one that removed your head? Who is the one that left you without anything to drink? إِنَّ لَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma, we ask you in these nights. There are many people here that have needs of Allah. And you are the most merciful. You are the one that gives even though we do not deserve. And you have made us used to this. So we ask you, Allah, in these nights, bihaq Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, bihaq Ghurbat al-Hussein. We ask you, bihaq Zainab alayha salam, and all those that were taken as prisoners. We ask you by them and by the tears that have been shed in this month, we ask you, oh Allah, do not let anyone leave this majlis with even an inkling of a sin that they will be questioned about, not punished, even questioned about. We ask you, oh Allah, do not let anyone leave this majlis with a need that is not fulfilled. We ask Allah, we ask you to cure our sick, especially anyone that is thinking of a sick person, this person specifically. Oh Allah, dress them in the clothing of shifa and healing, and get them out of the sickness that they're in. Oh Allah, have mercy upon our deceased, especially those that have passed, those that were involved in making this majalis, involved in any form of majalis, the parents of those that are involved in these majalis. Oh Allah, have mercy upon them, dress them in the clothing of mercy, and place them with Muhammad wa al Muhammad alayhim as-salam. Oh Allah, we ask you to hasten the reappearance of our master Al-Hujjat ibn al-Hasan al-Mahdi, arwahuna fidah. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى أولاد وعلى أصحاب الحسين، ورحمة الله وبركاته وإلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وإلى أرواح موتانا جميعا، ولقضاء الحوائج وقبول الأعمال وشفاء المرضى وغفران الذنوب وتعجيل الفرج وحسن العاقبة. رحم الله من قرأ سورة المباركة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
Brothers and sisters, inshallah, after a small noha, we will be having a Q&A session with Sheikh, inshallah. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein.
रे कहाफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है, सूरे कहाफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है, सूरे कहाफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है। खून आँखों से बहाता है, खून आँखों से बहाता है ये सर किसका है, सूरे कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है, सूरे कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है। चलते चलते जो सकीना कहीं गिर जाती है, चलते चलते जो सकीना कहीं गिर जाती है, खुद को नेज़े से घिराता है, खुद को नेज़े से घिराता है ये सर किसका है, सूरे कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है, सूरह कहफ सुनाता है
ये सर किसका है
जिस तरफ जाता है बाजार में सर अकबर का जिस तरफ जाता है बाजार में सर अकबर का उस तरफ देखता जाता है उस तरफ देखता जाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह का फिर सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह
सुनाता है ये सर किसका है
जब भी दाखिल किसी बाजार में होते हैं हरम जब भी दाखिल किसी बाजार में होते हैं हरम पहला पत्थर यही खाता है पहला पत्थर खाता है ये सर किसका है कहा
सुनाता है ये सर किसका है
सूरह
काफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है
रात होती है तो मासूम सी एक बच्ची को रात होती है तो मासूम सी एक बच्ची को लोरी नेज़े से सुनाता है लोरी नेज़े से सुनाता है ये सर किसका है कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह का
सुनाता है ये सर किसका है
पर के कुरान की आयत सर ज़ैनब से पर के कुरान की आयत सर ज़ैनब से ध्यान लोगों का हटाता है ध्यान लोगों का हटाता है ये सर किसका है कहफ सुनाता है ये सर किसका है सूरह कहफ सुनाता है ये सर
किसका है या हुसैन या हुसैन या हुसैन मोहम्मद व आल मोहम्मद सलवात
Brothers and sisters, before you go, I just want to show you one slide, if you don't mind. But firstly, I'd like to thank Sheikh Mohammed. We'll just do a quick Q&A. I know there's a couple of quick questions with him, and then I'll let you shake hands with him. He's trying to escape, and I'm trying to make him stay. If Sheikh can come over this way a little bit, if you don't mind. Firstly, I've heard Sheikh Mohammed speak for many, many years. I think that was one of the finest lectures I've heard him give. I said that I sent a message to someone, get listening to it, because I think he's on fire today. And then he explained to me why he had a bit more emotion about things being recited that weren't correct. Inshallah, may Allah look after Sheikh and his brothers, and of course always remembering his father and his family. So Sheikh Mohammed is running this course. And I've sent this out. It's the Jurisprudence and Fundamentals course. It was running at Imam Hussein Islamic Center. He had 50 students there before. It's run separately for men and women. It'll be 2 separate classes. It will be here on Saturday. There's a lot of us who are here on Saturday during madrasa. So it will be here during Saturday. So during the madrasa classes, it will run, as you can see the time, the ladies one will start at 4:30 to 5:30. Reason we've put ladies first, it should be ladies first, but usually they'll be on time compared to the men. And we've put men second. The cost is $30 per session, so it's $270 of the course there, because it is a proper program. This is not just to come, it is run correctly, sir.
Just I wanted to add that the 6 p.m. is not exact time because of the prayer.
Yes.
Variable. So don't be there for the prayer.
Come for the namaz first. Yeah.
Come for the namaz, but it's not going to be exactly 6 o'clock, so you don't hold us to that. Yeah, it's a prayer. So, but the ladies, inshallah.
So as a thank you also to Sheikh, I'm going to ask Sheikh to ask one question on both the men's side and the ladies' side. Whoever gets that right, but who will attend, I don't want you to get it right and then don't attend this. Whoever gets it right on behalf of Imam Hassan Center will give away, will pay for one male and one brother, one sister's course. So we're going to ask one question. Don't yell out the answer. We will get you to write. So the first person to put their hand up will get the answer of those who will attend. Don't win it if you're not attending. Okay? Just let me repeat that. If you are going to win it, it's wajib kurbatan illallah. I don't know which hadith Sheikh will cover me here. It may be a wrong one, but it's wajib kurbatan illallah. You must attend. Fair enough? We have a few people who have already registered. So if you are here and you do that, we will waive the fee for one.
One guy that registered, he's coming up from Qiyamah, not Qiyamah.
From Qiyamah, we used to call it. You have to pass Yallah to get Qiyamah. Yes, very well. Yeah.
Qiyamah, he's coming up from Qiyamah to come here. Yes.
And there's, as I said, there was 50 students on the second round, and it's being run at IHIC at Imam Hussein Islamic Center again. You've heard his speech. He know you will enjoy. It'll be fun as well. I promise you, it'll be fun when Sheikh Mohammed is involved. So, are we going to ask 2 questions or?
I just want to explain something about the course. One of the main questions people ask, what levels are this for? I've designed the course. This is like 8 years of me teaching this. I used to teach this in people's houses, and I put it together. They're based on books, so they're not things like my basis is books, but I've given it my touch. The reason is, anyone that gets up and gives the lessons from their own back pocket, don't sit and listen to them. And the books are books that are solid. The first book I'm using to teach the jurisprudence, I'll be reading from Minhaj al-Salihin for Sayyid Sistani, and I'll be giving the link, I'll be giving simplified laws for Sayyid Sistani. So we're not getting something out of our back pocket, something that is solid. The first 9 weeks, I just want to give you an idea. I'll be establishing taqleed, what taqleed is, and it's thorough, but it's, you believe in jurisprudence, when I studied it, is the most boring subject to study. But the class I had at IHIC, I had between an 80 to 90% attendance. So people remained because it's made for beginners and experts. Some of the people I had knew, some people, even if they don't know, the way I've approached in every angle for people to understand what taqleed is. And the final 3 weeks, we go over the greater sins that are pertaining to us because they're part of the taqleed. So we understand that. The fundamentals are fundamentals of Islamic principles for Sheikh Hussein Wahid al-Khurasani. The people that know who he is, he's 104 years old, may Allah prolong his life. And he is the leading marja in Qom. His Bahth Kharij is the most watched. So, and he's a student of Sayyid al-Khu'i. He's not just anybody. When we're talking about his book is the book we're using. And our first, the fundamentals, we don't even start with Tawheed. We start with finding God. For 9 weeks, you're going to find God. That's what we work on. So the whole objective of the fundamentals course, after we finish all the courses, this is course 1, there's going to be course 2. The whole objective is that your religion is solid and it's unshakable. And this is the whole objective of this course, because if we don't have a strong aqidah, we're not able to move forward. So that's what we're doing, and that's the system I have. If you want to ask anyone that's done the course from Imam Hussein Center, you can ask Haj Ali Sharif, anyone else knows him, to give you people. But the people that have attended the course, like I said, they've aided. If it wasn't, I didn't get good feedback. I used to have 14 independent private classes before I started this. But then I was going to get a divorce. So I had to just make one class, you know what I mean? So that's why we ended up doing this, sorry.
That's okay.